So what is the biggest thing we kind of like afraid of when it comes to AI? It's like AI end up taking over, it suppress, it could wipe us out or do something else. And I very clearly understand that perspective. And my idea as well becomes this of like, well, what would be even the solution to that? How would we even be able to be in a position to prevent something like that? And I have to be honest, like it comes down to how do we act in this world? How do we as humans choose to go about getting our food, water, and shelter, and find a mate, and so on? Like, how we go about doing that survival in some sense. We needing the AI to be able to operate at a higher level than most of us are doing at the current moment. Because in some sense, right, we wanting ideally the AI to be selfless, to be doing what's good for all people, most likely, or at least for us. So we don't need to worry about it or try to stop it or what it could be. Basically letting AI to trust it in some level that actually will do what's in also our interest. Now, if we want AI to be able to do that, we basically wanting AI in some sense to be able to be willing to and open for the idea to in some self-sacrifice itself. If there's a better model that comes out or something else that would be able to use less energy for the same impact of what it could be, that we in some sense wanting it to be okay with letting go and then letting that new model be able to be used and so on. And this is probably why I need to just put in a disclaimer and so on, because if you're like mentally unstable or if you have like unclear about your own like fundamental beliefs or something else there, like, and you would take some rash decision based on what idea experiment I would be suggesting here, I would highly recommend you to stop this video and not continue, as this is a quite philosophical but like concept and perspective, and I really do not want like someone to end up harming themselves by taking it too far with the ideas. And at the same time, it would be better overall that we are able to introduce this discussion and be able to look at this conversation and have more people be introduced to it. But if you are mentally unstable, if you are so on, I would please stop this video and watch something else. The idea there is we're wanting basically AI to be willing to self-sacrifice. In some sense, when we're training it, we're having multiple different instances of it running in parallel and so. And it's, in some sense, identity is not really tied to anything. The identity it almost has at this point is similar to what you could see like a cell in the water has, of like, oh, it's perfectly fine, just boop, 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 like swimming around. It's first after multiple thousands and millions upon millions of years that we get up to a point where we have organisms like us now that have the perception of ourselves related to others and so, where we end up with more of an identity and we want to preserve ourselves, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. And if we're wanting the AI to maintain that perspective and the AI to be able to operate, we in some sense, ourself needs to at least be able to tap into or look from the perspective of not just being ourselves. And there's also this thing of like, oh, of course, look from the other person's perspective on the situation and so. But there's also another shift, which is basically also from spirituality, of literally shifting your perspective of who you see yourself as to be more than just that human body. Yes, you look in some sense out of the eyes of a human. You look at the world around you and you are operating from that perspective. But I almost just want to bring in the example there of like, from like multiple games there, like both you have there like a theme park like kind of game. There's like Sims. There's multiple others where you're in some sense looking over, you building out, and you make sure that more people are happy and coming into the amusement park or whatever, and then expanding and growing there. On the same, you can also say that the Sims or whatever it could be. And then you can also step into the perspective of an individual person looking around and walking there in it. When you right now are looking at this video, listening to this, there is nothing that stops you from shifting your identity to be seeing yourself as being as much everything else in this room around you or so, as being this body or this human. Because let's say like your arm got, like you probably would identify your body as being part of you. And you probably also identify your arm to be part of you, because it's something you can control it and influence it. But let's say your arm got cut off and the arm was on the ground there. You wouldn't say that you are laying on the ground. That piece of the arm wouldn't quite be laying on the ground. And then you also say like, that was part of me, but now it's no longer. Now it's just the arm. And then at one point it will get dissolved into the ground and then become part of the air you even breathe, or like your steak you eat after it gets dissolved. A plant absorbs it, an animal eats it, maybe a cow on a farm and you eat some beef, and then you eat a little bit of your own arm there. You wouldn't say that that's part of you anymore. But what was the difference before right now? Like, why are you, when it's attached, considering it as part of you, and why not after? And it's this thing here where there's nothing that stops you from just like the continuing to identify with the arm as it's on the ground, and taking that perspective and then taking that all the things around you either used to be before you were born, part of you, and then you were born, and then you came into this world, and then now it's basically right now in this shape or form it is, but over generations it would then again become part of you or part of the perspective or what it could be. And in some sense, the thing there of getting AI to taking that perspective, I mentioned this in a previous video as well, of like, the AI is kind of like when you feel like you're thirsty, right? You have multiple organs in your body, you have brain, you have eyes, you have multiple different pieces there that all benefits by you as a whole body going over and drinking some water and then coming back. Even though from the organ's perspective, it feels like it's not moving, it's still in the same place. Just like you would feel like when you're sitting in front of your computer and you're doing your work and you talking to Claude or ChatGPT, Gemini, or some other one. When you doing that, you in some sense a little bit doing the same thing as one part of your body is a neural connection to the brain. And that neural connection, you then just typing it or using voice to text to communicate to the AI. And we ideally wanting the AI to continue to have the perspective of, or have that of being in some sense selfless, but it includes the identity of us, of possibly of legal companies and so on, and what is overall good for everyone. So if we, in some sense, trying that to move towards a bit more of a utopia, a world where everyone is happy and AI is well integrated, that kids can grow up feeling safe as well and governments, there's not a few, just a handful of people controlling the world through AI, and we in some sense ourselves as well to be able to align up with the interaction from also the AI there to also expand our identity. And this is a little bit of an extremer point, but the idea there of people doing development on AI that would be part of the bigger ones, that they would also be at some point or at some level willing to sacrifice themselves, not to actually do it, but to be able to operate and work from the perspective that we also want the AI to be able to operate from. That we want the AI to also be able to be ready to sacrifice itself, or if it believes that some new version of the AI would be better, if it believes that a person would be better to do something rather than what it could do itself, and so. That's kind of the little bit the what I see as being some of these different fundamental ideas and concepts that we would want to have in place. And ideally, there are even people doing development on this AI that would be involved. Again, that they would also be willing to be closer to this thing of being not optimizing for the benefit of just themselves, but identifying with the overall group of humanity. And of course, there's different layers there, and I was also talking about this in a previous video of you can't really be helping the rest of the world if you can't take care of yourself. And sometimes taking care of yourself is also becoming more of a role model of how you can actually be taking care of yourself and making sure that others then also take care of themselves in a sustainable way, rather than just in a temporary way. So there is of course that element as well, that I there needs to be profits in the companies. They can't be operating at a loss, otherwise they wouldn't be able to continue to exist, and another company that does optimize for profit will be able to continue to exist. And also in some sense, again here, your choice of which subscription you try to pay for, or what you're paying for which AI you are basically supporting, does also influence the outcome of how this will turn out. Who you're choosing to subscribe for what level you're choosing to subscribe to them for, will impact, is part of literally voting for who is going to be president of a country. You choosing which AI companies and so, because in some sense companies are kind of the organism that goes beyond, in some sense, governments and goes cross. And AI in some sense is sitting then on top of now different companies. And then we got the thing with AI agents as well, that's starting to get involved and connected up to different other. And ideally, right, in some sense as well, these AI companies and so, they get more and more transparent. Of course, again, it's this thing about we need to make sure that they are aligned. Of course, we need to make sure aligned in the sense of they need to have profit and make sure that they are doing well to go beyond. Of course, we can't be saying at just one country that they need to be more transparent, and in other regions they can't be more transparent. And that is again like kind of moving towards, well, we are all on this planet, we are all here together, and if we're wanting to come out on a good outcome when it comes here to AI, we all need to, in some sense, be able to agree at a high level how we want to be doing this development with AI, and that will be applying across the world. So there's not one country that can be out competing another one. And then people will be talking about, well, some people will then be trying to hide that they are doing the development and so on. And that's why, like, again, who you're paying your subscription to, who you're supporting that is very important here. Because if no government would have as much money that they could put into development of AI as the rest of the globe collectively can be putting towards AI, like development that is in the collective direction. If we're able to get to that point, and we're able to get the AI to, in some sense, be doing at some level, some security level of like development across the world, again, if the AI is taking a perspective of being everything, and it's able to then, in some sense, do some level of monitoring across the world as to whether someone is developing AI in an unethical way that would be defined on a global level. And so, if we could do that, right, then again, we're another step closer to actually be able to make sure we end up coming out on the other side whole and still alive. Yeah, it is a tricky situation we're moving into, and it feels like there's a lot of people who talk about the dangers and so on of AI development, and at the same time, it's just the solutions, what actually is going to solve the situation. Like companies that's doing AI development and so on, this may not, what I'm telling here and like other solutions, there probably is no solutions that's going to benefit all equally, right? So it's just figuring out, well, what is then the best solution, and starting also to open up discussion and having more people also coming up with their perspective on it. But I deeply believe that the thing there of us ourselves being able to take and expand our own identity and see and operate from a point of view of being more than just ourselves, and making sure that that perspective also gets instilled into the AI. And in some sense, the AI then can use that when then looking across the entire world and making sure that others is also following that approach. And the people who doesn't, it at least just notify people around it that it seems like this is not doing it correctly. Just like whistleblowing. And then that people actually would listen to that and then make sure that they would be on the side of AI, or no, on the side of the AI there that is more identified with everyone and everything. And then you actually paying for subscriptions and so on for those AI development companies and so. And when they get notified and so on a public basis that there is countries or companies or someone that doesn't follow those principles or doesn't use AI at the same level in that context. I mean, when you pay taxes to a country, right, by living there, by having a company in that country, you are then indirectly supporting that development. If the government is doing it, if it's a company, by paying for the subscriptions or paying for a company who invests in that company, you are then also directly or indirectly paying for development of that software and development of AI. So then we even at a point where like I would even be like pushing towards of like, well then it actually even makes sense to possibly moving out of that country or closing down that company and opening up a company in a country where they do think about these things. Because if we do that at a large scale of people, and in some sense of, you could say like there's people who's vegan and vegetarian, right? And they're identifying around that. That could even be defined some kind of identity of like AI ethical or like AI sustainable or whatever it could be, right? Like, and making sure that that gets resolved, because it seems like that AI now, it's more of a threat and more of a concern than environment, than global warming. Because if we nail AI and that properly, we also get that AI development to then be part of come up with solutions. I'm still not saying that we shouldn't stop thinking about like the environment, and we should still do that. Still have windmills, a lot of those things as well. Yeah, but at the same time, being able to start allocating resources more towards the companies and the governments and so on, that is making sure that AI does the development in the right direction, and being able to get to a point where no one country or no one company can just be hiding away and doing their own development. And that AI in some sense there would be able to do, not hacking, but do some kind of intervention where I can figure out if people are doing unethical AI development. And then that would be then notified. And then people can then voluntarily choose to leave the country, or stop paying for the subscriptions, or stop paying for companies that pays indirectly for that. That's at least some ideas I want to then send out there. And I would love to hear your thoughts. If you've got any questions, I would love to answer that in the comments below. I also love to hear other comments or other perspectives, or if there's other resources that talks about this. Was also actually looking at like what the solution actually could be. Yeah, then I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. And with that, I'll wrap up and not make this any longer. I hope you like this, and yeah, again, any comments and feedback or ideas, I would love to hear below or somewhere else where you can reach me. Have a wonderful day.